So welcome to the New Jersey Climate Change Resource Center's Spring Climate Academy's webinar on the changing landscapes of New Jersey's clean energy program, focusing on energy policy in New Jersey. My name is Marjorie Kaplan, and I'm both Associate Director of the Rutgers Climate Institute, and along with my colleague, Jean Herb of the Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy here at Rutgers, I co-direct the New Jersey Climate Change Resource Center. A few logistics. Today's webinar will last until 1 p.m. Other than today's presenters and our Rutgers team, you're all muted, so to communicate with us, please type your questions into the chat box. And to find the chat box, look at the bottom of the screen and you'll see a little bubble that says chat. And if you click on that, you can send us questions and comments. Please send your notes to all panelists, as that ensures all of us working behind the scenes today will see your questions. Thanks to my colleagues, Matt Drews and Dr. Carrie Ferraro here at Rutgers for their help with today's webinar. We welcome your thoughts and your questions. And I also want to let you know we're recording today's webinar and it will be available on the Climate Change Resource Center website, which we will put into the chat. One continuing education credit has been requested through the American Planning Association. We are very pleased to present today's webinar by Christine Sadovy. This is the first in a three-part series on climate change and energy for New Jersey, how it's evolved over time, along with ongoing efforts to achieve the state's greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals. This event will be followed by 2 more detailed webinars for those interested in residential opportunities on March 19th, and those interested in commercial and industrial opportunities for energy conservation on March 26th. So now I want to tell you a little bit about our speaker. Christine Sadovy is the Chief of Staff at the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, and she was appointed by BPU President Fiordaliso in July of 2020. Christine joined NJBPU in October of 2018 to help in spearheading Governor Murphy's clean energy agenda. At BPU, she's worked on key initiatives such as the 2019 Energy Master Plan and implementation of the 2018 Clean Energy Act and the state's electric vehicle program. Christine is a lifelong New Jersey resident and she's a Rutgers graduate. We're very happy to have her here today. So it's now my pleasure to invite Christine to start sharing her screen, to unmute herself, and to take it away. Thank you so much, Christine, for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna try to share my screen here. There we go. Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's such an honor to do this webinar and to join all of you. And of course, I'm a Rutgers grad, so it's all the more exciting. I will have to ask for your forgiveness in advance. I have 2 dogs at home with me, so I think everyone can understand working from home. Sometimes there's occasional background noise. I would say it's more than an occasion in my house with one of my dogs. So I do have to, in advance, ask your forgiveness for the background noise. I will mute myself if I need to, so bear with me. So excited to talk about New Jersey's clean energy programs and how they have evolved, particularly under the leadership of Governor Murphy and President Fiordaliso. It's been such an exciting couple of years for the BPU, working towards the goal of 100% clean energy, and always thinking about Governor Murphy's stronger and fairer agenda for the state of New Jersey. So just a little bit, about what we'll talk about today. Quickly, the agenda, we're going to start with the Energy Master Plan, since that's really the state's guiding document for achieving Governor Murphy's goals. We've had some very exciting legislation passed in service of the goals of the Energy Master Plan and complementing the goals of the Energy Master Plan, but that's really the guiding document for how we proceed. So I'm going to go here. A little bit about the EMP. I'm going to try not to read a whole lot of the slides that I have. So, feel free to read along as I'm talking. There are 7 strategies to the Energy Master Plan, and I'll just go through the top level here: reducing energy consumption and emissions from the transportation sector. This is actually the first EMP that has included transportation emissions, which I'm sure many of you in this group already know are the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in New Jersey. So that was a really critical change and evolution from previous EMPs, was including that transportation piece in the goals. accelerating deployment of renewable energy and distributed energy resources. And again, we're going to talk more about all of these. Maximizing efficiency and conservation and reducing peak demand, reducing energy consumption and emissions from the building sector. Very important for New Jersey as it is a highly built out state and it is an old state in terms of the building sector. Decarbonizing and modernizing New Jersey's energy system, supporting community energy planning and action. That is a critical part of the stronger and fairer piece. And much of what I will talk about today is touches on equity. It's an important issue throughout all of our programs and continues to be a critical piece of Governor Murphy's agenda. And then expanding the clean energy innovation economy. And that's really a theme that has run throughout the Energy Master Plan and continues to be a main focus for the BPU and obviously for the Murphy administration, particularly as we recover slowly from the pandemic and the economic crisis that has gone along with it. The clean energy economy is going to be a really significant piece of that recovery puzzle. And so that's more important now than ever. Just a little bit of background on the New Jersey Clean Energy Program. It's administered obviously by the BPU. It's funded through the Societal Benefits Charge, which is a charge on all customers' utility bills, residential and commercial, and it has the following program goals, which you can see, and going back to Governor Murphy's goal of 100% clean energy by 2050. A little bit about the portfolio of programs that are run through the state's clean energy program: renewable energy, energy efficiency, commercial and industrial, distributed energy resources, and residential. And you can see a little bit more about those programs. Obviously, some of them are more talked about than others, right? The solar transition, offshore wind. But all of these pieces are critical in terms of the goals of reducing greenhouse gases and meeting the 100% clean energy goal. We have to reduce our energy use in particular if we're going to get to our goals, especially as we talk about the change to electrified transportation, right? We need to make sure that we are reducing energy in other places, and so we have to focus on energy efficiency. Sorry. All right, so a little bit about clean energies. I'm gonna see if I can address this issue with my dog here. A little bit about the clean energy program performance, because I think that that's a critical piece of the addressing the climate emissions through the energy sector. We have
Imagine this. Your organization has been struggling to maintain a sense of normalcy during a raging global pandemic.
Oh,
It's late Friday afternoon, and an email entitled.
Okay. Not sure what happened right there. I'm just gonna keep going. The program performance in FY20, we processed 141,000 applications in the clean energy program, and that includes applications for energy efficiency, for Comfort Partners, which is our low-income energy efficiency program. We have applications obviously for solar projects, for electric vehicle rebates, and I'll talk a lot about all of these. The electric savings, has been delivered through electric, gas, oil, and other efficiencies, and we've had 145 million plus incentives paid out in FY20. And that's a critical piece of the pie. That's why we have the SBC, is so that, or one of the reasons why we have the SBC, the Societal Benefits Charge, is so that we can help incentivize energy efficiency, clean energy, and make sure that it is affordable for all residents in New Jersey. And that's a really critical goal for this administration, is clean energy affordability and accessibility. And I'll talk more about that throughout. So real world results. This is a climate change discussion. And so that's what we really want to focus on in terms of results. There are obviously economic benefits to clean energy, but we are here, and I am here at the BPU because of the goals of Governor Murphy around climate change and reducing CO2 emissions. And so that's what we're focused on today with the clean energy program. The 159,000 plus cars removed from the road. That's, that we're talking about equivalencies here. 12 million trees planted, over 700,000 metric tons of greenhouse gases eliminated. And these are just some of the results that we're focused on, and we will continue to be focused on throughout the administration. Let's see. I want to talk a little bit about the Clean Energy Act of 2018. The EMP, or the Clean Energy Act, obviously preceded the finalization of the Energy Master Plan, but we have been having these discussions and thinking about these goals and working on these issues throughout the last few years of the Murphy administration. So the Clean Energy Act was a really big initiative, and continues to be a big initiative in terms of moving to a clean energy future, but also transitioning clean energy so that it's more affordable, and accessible for all people in New Jersey. So just some of the key policy provisions of the Clean Energy Act is closing the SREC program, the Solar Renewable Energy Credit Program, which is what New Jersey had been utilizing to incentivize solar, and transitioning to a new solar incentive structure. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the key pieces of that is the cost cap. The Clean Energy Act instituted a cost cap on the final solar program. And so that is something that we at the BPU are working on right now, is that final solar successor, and how we ensure that it meets the cost cap, which has been instituted because we want to make sure that solar energy both grows, but also is affordable as costs and prices come down, making sure that our incentive structure is appropriate for where the industry growth is happening. The Community Solar Pilot Program, and again, I'll talk more about that, but that's part of ensuring that solar energy and clean energy is accessible to all New Jerseyans, and I'll get into that because that's really such an exciting piece of what we're doing, and one of the things that I'm most proud of in terms of the work of the BPU. Energy savings targets for electric and gas utilities. Again, transitioning energy efficiency and ensuring that we have achievable goals for reducing energy in both gas and electric utilities, and I'll talk more about that. And then energy storage report, which I know Rutgers is familiar about, and targets for storage capacity, which I'll talk more about as we move forward. All right, so let's talk about energy efficiency. I think there's that saying that I hear, I know our president always says it, the cleanest kilowatt is the one that you don't use. So reducing energy is a critical piece of meeting both the 100% clean energy goals, but also the Global Warming Response Act goal of 80% by 2050, 80% greenhouse gas emission reductions by 2050. So energy efficiency is a key piece of that, because we're reducing the energy that we're using. The energy efficiency transition, that has been, I will say, one of the most exciting undertakings that the BPU has done in the last couple of years, is transitioning from a program that was really housed almost exclusively in the clean energy program and funded through the state societal benefits charge, to one that is more of a mix of both utility funded programs and state funded programs. So there are some principles that I'm going to go through for the energy efficiency transition that you'll see here. Access for all market segments, right? It should not matter where you live. Prior to the transition, if you lived in a utility service area like I do, that wasn't offering energy efficiency programs, you were stuck. You only had access to the state programs, and they may not have suited you for any number of reasons, whether it's an affordability issue, or whether you lived in an apartment, or it might not have been what you were looking for. If you were a commercial business, if you were living in one of the utility areas that didn't offer programs, you were very limited in what you could access. So ensuring that all utilities we're participating and offering energy efficiency programs is and was a critical piece of the transition. Decrease energy burden with a focus on lower income customers and environmental justice communities. So the thing about energy efficiency is, it helps to bring down customer costs for all customers. As we reduce our energy use as a whole, we are bringing down the cost of energy for everyone, or that at least that's our goal, right? And you can see below that there were specific 5-year energy reduction targets, 2.15% for electric and gas companies, and 1.1%, or for electric companies, and 1.1% for gas distribution companies. And I again apologize for my dog here. A little bit about the program administration. And again, this was a really big change for what we had previously been doing in the clean energy program and with the utility programs. You can see where we separated the state administered versus the utility administered, and where we are co-managed. The low income program, the Comfort Partners low income program, which provides energy efficiency upgrades for low income people, totally free of charge. That's really important for people who are struggling to pay their utility bills, making sure that they have all the energy efficiency opportunities so that they can save money and lower their bills. That's really one of the key programs that we run with the utilities at the BPU. And so that's one that we decided that it was important that the state be part of, but that we have the utilities involved in as well, so that there is accessibility for all people throughout the state. And again, I'm going to apologize for my dog here. All right, so let's see. And I don't want to read through them, but you can see what how we separated the state administered and utility administered programs, and you may have seen some of the media coverage about the utility programs. Certainly, there's been a lot of discussion about this change in the media, so I will move on from here to talk about renewable energy. I think renewable energy is and particularly solar and offshore wind, they're always the super exciting topics in clean energy, and so it's part of why I led with energy efficiency, because I think every time we think about clean energy, we're thinking about solar and wind, or many people are. And so I wanted to lead off with energy efficiency because it is as important, if not more important, than renewable energy and solar and wind. It is an affordable form of clean energy. It reduces our energy use. It saves costs for all customers. So I wanted to make sure that we led off with that. And then, we'll get into more of the exciting stuff with renewable energy. You will see this little lightning bug up here in the top corner of my presentation slide. That is Chloe. Chloe is the Clean Energy Program's mascot, and you may have seen her in some of our marketing that we've done and our advertising. It is also, a new initiative. We had not done the agency had not done the program in several years, and so we worked with a marketing company and developed Chloe and some other really exciting marketing to help get our programs out into the world. All right, so I digress about Chloe, but I will move on to renewable energy. Offshore wind, we have a state goal of 7,500 megawatts by 2035. We have already awarded 1,100 megawatts to Ørsted's Ocean Wind Project in 2019. Some exciting stats: it was the largest award for a single project in the US. It is planned to generate 1.17 billion in economic benefits, create an estimated 15,000 jobs, and power 500,000 homes. It also has, working on the development of offshore wind has also been, instrumental in port development. So, in terms of bringing a continued economic development to regions of the state like Paulsboro in South Jersey and Salem County in South Jersey, those will be really big job creating hubs, manufacturing facility in Paulsboro. And so it's really been not just about the wind turbines out in the water, but also about the development of manufacturing in places that, that have not had that in quite some time in New Jersey. So the second solicitation awards we anticipate for June 2021. We're really excited. We are evaluating the bids that we have right now. It's obviously, it's not something I can talk too much about in detail, but we expect the award to happen in June, and we look forward to moving forward on the goals, the 7,500 megawatt goal by 2035, and we hope to be seeing turbines in the water in a few years. All right. Let's see. Okay. All right. Solar transition. The Clean Energy Act required the BPU to undergo a transition from, at the time, the existing solar renewable energy credit incentive in order to maintain the growth of the industry while reducing cost to repairs. And that was, again, it said earlier, a big piece of, of the puzzle was ensuring that we were reducing costs. That, the solar industry it has been a growing industry throughout the last few decades. It continues to grow. And we wanted to make sure that as costs came down, which they have significantly for solar panels, that we were incentivizing appropriately. So we took a very hard look at the SREC program. We developed a bridge, the transition program. We've been calling it the TREC, and that's where that's the program that we're in now. And we are currently developing the successor straw proposal. We're actually in the final phases of the development of the successor straw, and we hope to be releasing that, I would say, in the coming weeks. This has been, a really intense process in terms of stakeholder feedback and engaging members of both the solar industry and the environmental community and the trades. So it's been a very long process, the transition, and an intense process. And I will say a challenging process for some of our BPU staff, but we're really looking forward to putting out that straw proposal and getting additional feedback on the solar successor program. Community solar, as I said, this is, I would say one of, if not the initiative that I'm most proud of that the BPU is working on, because it does really help to ensure that clean energy and renewable energy is accessible to all people. If you live in an apartment, or if you live in a house that you can't put solar on your roof, or you have found that solar is unaffordable for your house, then community solar, the program has been developed to ensure that that it is an accessible form of renewable energy for everybody. So just a little bit, many of you probably know about community solar, but a little bit about what it is. If you've never heard of community solar, it is a community solar project is developed. So, for example, if you live in a densely populated area that has a lot of row houses or apartments or duplexes, which is like the town that I live in, there's not a lot of opportunity to develop solar on roofs. So a community solar project is developed in, a nearby or on the roof of a nearby school, maybe, or on, on a nearby parking lot or an, open area where they can actually put solar panels. And then the solar is delivered to the grid, just like other solar is. If you have solar on your house, it's the same way, it's delivered to the grid. And then you buy, for community solar, you buy a solar subscription. So this helps to ensure that, that solar project is something that everyone is able to have access to. And that buying a subscription is the way that we do that. Just a little bit more about it. Again, there are subscribers. Then the developer is, oftentimes a solar developer, but working with maybe a town or a nonprofit. They find a host site where the project can be installed. And again, it goes into the grid, and subscribers are individuals who get to buy the solar power and have that access to clean energy. So right there is the first community solar installation in New Jersey. It is It is in Perth Amboy, and it is on top of warehouses, which I'm not sure if you can see that from the picture, but it is a really enormous project. I think it was 7 megawatts, if I remember correctly. We recently had a press conference there with Governor Murphy and President Fiordaliso and the developers, SunPower. And it's such a great project for so many reasons. I mean, obviously, community solar and the accessibility issues just in general are great. This project, the company worked with the Edison Job Training Institute to train local community members to become solar installers, and then hired and employed local community members to build this project and other projects for community solar. And it's such a wonderful success story. I was able to meet one of the developers and installers of the project, and it's exactly what we want solar energy and clean energy to be in New Jersey, right? It's on a warehouse. Obviously there are situations where there's where it's ground mounted, but this is really the best case scenario. The panels are on a warehouse. It's in a community that needs economic advancement. It's something that community members throughout Perth Amboy and some of the surrounding towns can subscribe to and have access to clean energy, and it's helping to employ people. So it's really a win-win situation. And it was such an honor to be part of the development of this project. Before I talk about resiliency just a little bit more, we're in the last, we have closed the second year pilot program application window. And we are just now, I don't have an exact number. I was hoping at this presentation I would be able to give you an exact number of the applications, but there have been so many. And we have, we've got them in a couple of weeks ago. We've been reviewing them. Our team has been looking at them for completeness, and there were just so many that we have not been able to tally the exact number. So unfortunately, I didn't have that for today, although I hope to. But we will have that soon, and that's been really exciting as as the second year application window closes. All right, a little bit about energy resiliency. Again, another new initiative for the BPU and part of the Energy Master Plan and our goals around resiliency is community energy planning grants. And what this is working with local communities, providing them grant incentives to come up with effectively a mini energy master plan, so that local communities can look at their own energy use, their own transportation planning, land use, water management, and waste management, and come up with ways that those communities can meet the goals of the energy master plan. So much of what is done in New Jersey is at the municipal level. And I'm sure I'm not telling anyone anything they don't know. We have 565 municipalities. And so ensuring that municipalities have the ability to do their own planning and are part of the development of energy sources in their communities is a big part of the goals of the administration. And that's why we develop these community energy planning grants. So you can see here what that looks like. It's evaluating energy efficiency in new and existing buildings, looking at active transportation like bicycle lanes, how we address vehicle transportation, low carbon vehicles, electric vehicles, looking at transportation and public transit, and then also obviously renewable and alternative energies. So we've been working with communities, and we will continue to develop and offer these grants to communities who want to take part in their own energy planning and take part in meeting the goals of the Energy Master Plan. A little bit about microgrids. A microgrid is a cluster of critical facilities within the municipal boundary that may also operate as a shelter for the public during and after an emergency event, or provide services that are essential to function during and after emergency event. And so the board had funded 13 feasibility studies. We had applications from municipalities all over the state looking to develop microgrids. This is something that came out, actually has been kind of a transition from the previous administration after Hurricane Sandy, to ensure that there are these localized sources of energy where if we have major power outages, which we've had even since Hurricane Sandy, that there are critical facilities that are connected that, can maintain power for, maybe a school so that members of the community can come in and charge their phones. Or, if it's a fire station, to ensure that those critical facilities have power. So this is something that's been a continued initiative of the BPU, and our focus, really moving forward is ensuring that that these microgrids have a renewable energy or a clean energy component, as that is a particular goal of this administration that is kind of new and has transitioned from the previous. Again, we talked a little bit about energy storage in the beginning, and the Clean Energy Act. Rutgers, our ULS, was retained to complete an energy storage study. Again, we've reviewed and accepted the study. We are looking at how the state can meet our energy storage goals, and we are working on the straw proposal to put out publicly to ascertain how the state can meet its energy storage goals. Electric vehicles, one of, again, I think our most significant and most talked about initiatives is the vehicle electrification. And again, it's the #1 goal of the Energy Master Plan, is to reduce consumption and emissions from the transportation sector. And as I said, the reason that it's the #1 goal is because the transportation sector has, historically and continues to be the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in New Jersey. We have I don't want to say clean, relatively clean electric grid. And so as we increase our transportation electrification, we want to make sure that our grid is as clean as possible, but we really need to focus on reducing emissions from the transportation sector, as that is our most significant source. So the Energy Master Plan, and I'll talk a little bit more about the EV law, sets a goal for 330,000 light-duty electric vehicles by 2025, establishing and developing charging infrastructure, electrifying the state's light-duty fleet, increasing transportation options and encouraging new options, decreasing vehicle miles traveled, which I think, right now, the one bright spot in the pandemic and everyone working from home is, the reduced transportation, people working from home and not having as many miles traveled. And then also reducing port emissions. A little bit about the overview of the electric vehicle law. The governor signed, of the electric vehicle MOU, Governor Murphy signed, that outlines BPU's role in encouraging electric vehicle use. And I think that this really has been one of the key initiatives of the BPU is electrification and developing the infrastructure, considering how to utilize clean energy program funds for zero emission vehicles. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, how to dedicate funds to an incentive program to encourage the buy and lease of new and used vehicles, and then tracking usage and exemption and electric consumption from charging infrastructure. All right, the EV law and Charge Up New Jersey. Governor Murphy signed the law in January of 2020. It solidified the goals that were in the Energy Master Plan: 330,000 vehicles, 85% of light duty vehicles sold, and then 400 DC fast chargers and 1,000 level 2 chargers available to the public. This law initiated the development of the Charge Up New Jersey program. New Jersey residents can receive an incentive of up to $5,000 when they purchase or lease a new electric vehicle in the state of New Jersey. This incentive is one of the most generous incentives in the country for electric vehicles, and has been really such a successful program, so much so that the $30 million allocated by the EV law annually for the program was expended in 10 months in the first year. So the program right now for the first year is closed because we've expended the $30 million for that year. When the fiscal year starts over in July, we will open the second year of the program. We have roughly given incentives to about 6,000 vehicles for the first year, and we hope to continue or increase that number as years, as years move forward. So we've maximized the program for sure, and are looking for opportunities to continue to maximize it going forward. We will have a public comment period and discussion about how to change the program if we want to change it for year two. And so, looking forward to putting out more information about that in the next few months. EV infrastructure built out. Again, this is kind of the chicken or egg scenario, right? We've more electric vehicles on the road. We need to make sure that the infrastructure is there to support those vehicles. With battery life obviously growing, charging is still a critical piece of it, and making sure that people feel like there are enough chargers, just like they feel like there are enough gas stations out there to bring some comfort and ease that range anxiety. So in September, we approved the light duty EV order to set a shared responsibility model for electric utilities and private investors. So the way that we've kind of set that up at the BPU, and we continue to develop the rules for light duty and the medium and heavy duty straw. Those will be coming out in the next couple of months. But the shared responsibility model really sees the role of the utilities to develop the make-ready infrastructure, which is everything leading up to the charger, and then private investors to come in for the charger itself, right? The kind of selling of a service or selling of time, charging time, left up to the private investors. And then there's obviously a need for charging in areas that might not attract private investors. So that's where the utilities have come in can come in as well and develop the chargers in those areas. All right. Oh, and I think that is it. So I think I'm probably close to right on time. And I will pause here to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Christine, for a wonderful presentation. We have plenty of time for to get to questions. We've had a pretty active chat box, but folks can continue to put questions in the chat box. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Carrie Ferraro, who's been diligently monitoring the chat box and who will direct your questions. Thanks very much, Carrie.
Thank you, Marjorie, and thank you so much, Christine, for such a wonderful presentation. As Marjorie mentioned, we definitely had an active chat box, so there's lots of questions for you. So our first question was Roger Lane. You mentioned equity, and he was wondering if you could define a little bit in terms of the BPU perspective, what you mean by equity.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I had as part of my notes to discuss a little bit more about our Office of Clean Energy Equity. So when equity went, sorry, there we go. At the BPU, when we are thinking about equity, we are wanting to ensure that all segments of society have access to clean energy, right? And ensuring that that costs associated with energy are distributed fairly, and that one segment of society is not paying more for clean energy. And again, ensuring that what is available to one segment of society is available to everyone, regardless of income levels, regardless of where you live. So that's really how the BPU is thinking about equity.
Great, thank you so much. You spoke about the SREC program and solar incentive structure. Can you share a bit more about the need for this energy transition? Why is this transition occurring?
Yeah, so really we have, I think, part of the Clean Energy Act and what we've been looking at the BPU is we have seen costs go down in solar energy, and we have been incentivizing solar through the SREC program, which is a market-based program, for several years. And it was time to look at how the costs have gone down for the development of solar panels, And so we are appropriately utilizing ratepayer funds. I think, the industry is still growing, and it is still, because it's such a valuable industry, both economically and to meet our greenhouse gas emissions goals, we understand the value of incentivizing solar. We want to make sure that it's affordable for people, and we're not there yet necessarily without the incentives. So we are transitioning to ensure that we are appropriately incentivizing. And when you look at the TREC program, which is the transition program, we have factored different types of solar differently in terms of their incentive value, because some areas, residential, commercial, industrial, community solar have different costs, but they also have different values. For example, development on brownfields, obviously we want to make use of those types of land, that type of land in New Jersey. And so we've ascribed different factors for brownfields and different factors for different types of solar based on how we think they should be incentivized. And that was a change from the SREC program previously.
Thank you. So John Doyen asked if a community solar project is approved in an area where the surrounding infrastructure can't necessarily handle the increased load. Is there funding that can help pay for the upgrade of the grid?
That's a good question. The way, the applications are evaluated, based on whether or not that can happen, right? That is part of the application process. We do recognize that grid issues, particularly with solar and particularly in one or two of our utility service areas, are a challenge. We are working on the development of a grid modernization study so that we can ensure that the grid, particularly in those areas where it is not amenable to solar because there's already so much solar or it just can't handle it, how we modernize the grid to ensure that solar is can come online, whether it's community solar or any other project.
Great, thank you. And you actually answered another one of the questions, which was asking a little bit about actions to improve grid resiliency and reliability. So you answered two questions in one there. Our next question, again related to the community energy planning grants. Jersey City, for example, submitted an application, and so they were wondering, when they might hear back, and also there were questions about when the next round of awards is, when the next opportunities would open up.
So I will have to get back to you on when they will hear back. If it's an open application, I'm not sure. So I will have to look into that. We are in the process of developing the clean energy budget for the next fiscal year. So this is part of the discussion. And there will be an opportunity for public comment. We are certainly looking at how we're going to continue the program next year. And so it will be something that we're considering and part of the clean energy budget for fiscal year 22. And that, that's happening right now.
Great, thank you. So our next question is kind of how successful, in your opinion, was the first year of Charge Up New Jersey rebates in terms of getting close to the 330,000 new electric vehicles registered by 2025? Do you have ideas of how to maybe boost the EV sales? Maybe, I don't know if you can answer this, but EV sales to reach our state goal.
Yeah, so I personally have some ideas, but we're going to be evaluating the first year of the program, and as I said, there will be an opportunity for comment. It's a math issue, right? Obviously, if we're maximizing the $30 million and everyone is getting a $5,000 rebate, it's only going to put 6,000 vehicles on the road through the incentive program. right? That's not the only vehicles that were purchased, but through the incentive program, it's only going to put 6,000 vehicles on the road. That's not going to get us to the goal of 330,000 vehicles, but the cost of EVs is coming down, and part of the, I would say one of the main goals of the incentive program is not just to, provide that incentive, but it's to boost the delivery of electric vehicles to dealers in New Jersey, to get dealers more comfortable and more excited about selling electric vehicles, to put vehicles on the road and get people more comfortable with the range anxiety issues. So we're not going to make it to 330,000 just through the incentive program, but that was not our goal, right? Our goal was to boost the market and really offer an incentive, kind of larger, broader incentive to the whole vehicle market.
Great, thank you so much. So we had a couple of questions, additional questions about kind of the equity and outreach piece. The first one, since you were just talking about EVs, is the question went away. Is there a plan or some ideas of how those that who can't plug their EV into their residence might be able to do so? So kind of ensuring, again, this kind of equity where they might have the opportunity for a place to charge their vehicles.
Yeah, I can totally understand that question. I live in Lambertville, New Jersey, which probably you're familiar with. I don't have a driveway, so I completely understand that challenge. So we approved 2 filings from the utilities, PSE&G and ACE, and part of those, some of those provisions were workplace charging and public charging. So that's really the focus of the light duty vehicle electrification infrastructure rules, and the filings that we have from the utilities and that we've already approved is to get more publicly accessible charging, incentivize the construction of workplace charging. We want to make sure that people feel comfortable if they don't have the ability to plug in at home, having charging in their community, or having access to charging on a thoroughfare. The battery life of vehicles is much, much longer now, 250 miles, 300 miles. So the ability to charge at home is much less critical, but you have to charge somewhere. So looking at workplace charging and public charging is something that we're doing with the light duty rules. We also have, and I didn't get into details about this because we had limited time, but we have what's called the local government clean fleet program. So we are offering incentives to local governments to buy electric vehicles for their fleets, but also to buy a charger for their fleet, but that's available to the public. And so that's something that we are offering as well to ensure that there's access to charging throughout the state.
Thank you so much. So can you comment on when the energy efficiency and renewable energy committee meetings and the New Jersey CEP outreach meetings will begin again, in terms of getting in the outreach and piece?
Yeah, so I don't have exact dates, but I know the energy efficiency committee meetings, this has, that has really been our focus, is to bring stakeholders in from all sectors and all segments of society. So we have looked at restructuring the energy efficiency committee meetings. And so they, I think, are going to be starting in the next few weeks. I don't quote me on exactly when, but Kelly Moy, our clean energy director, and I just spoke about this. And I think in the coming weeks, we will be looking at bringing in stakeholders on energy efficiency, workforce development and energy efficiency, equity and energy efficiency. And I'm sorry, I didn't address the Office of Clean Energy Equity, which was, obviously I should have, and that's been such an important and integral part of the transition. We hired recently a deputy director, Crystal Pruitt, to head the Office of Clean Energy Equity, and her role and the role of the office is explicitly to ensure that programs are accessible to all residents in New Jersey, and that our materials and that our outreach is consumer focused and focused on all people in New Jersey.
Thank you. Switching gears a little bit, Jeff Hurwitz was curious, what is BPU doing with town governments to modify building codes regarding energy efficiency and renewables?
So we are actually working with our sister agency, DCA, on this right now. BPU building codes are not in our purview per se, they're under the DCA, but we have started a process called the Code Collaborative with the Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnership. And so we are working with DCA right now. We just had a meeting with them actually this past week to come up with a plan for how we can ensure that our codes are ambitious and ensuring that they meet the goals of the Energy Master Plan.
Thank you so much. So there was also a question about whether you had information on solar batteries and potential rebates there.
I don't think I do. I'm not sure what, I mean, we don't have a rebate for solar batteries right now. I think if the question is about solar and storage, we are working on the energy storage straw proposal. And so that's something that's coming this year.
Great, thank you. Sorry. So our next question is, can you share approximately how long New Jersey has had a society beneficial charge?
I don't know the answer. I don't know when the SBC was created. I should know that. I mean, it's definitely in the decades, but I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I can get back to you though.
Sorry, I don't mean to ask you these trivia questions. Sorry.
That's okay.
There was a question you mentioned, wind turbines, and so there was a question about whether there's been an environmental impact study of wind turbines in the water, of turbines in water. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's something that we absolutely are conscious of and have been working with our sister agency to ensure that the impacts of wind turbines and the construction and development of wind turbines is done in the most environmentally sensitive way. It's part of our application process. Environmental impacts is part of our own application process. And fortunately or unfortunately, the United States is not the leader on offshore wind. There are many countries in Europe that have had the development of offshore wind for many years. So we have had some really great opportunities to work with the embassies and agencies in other countries like Denmark and Norway on offshore wind, and to hear some of their best practices. And I think we have taken our lessons and hopefully continue to learn lessons from the countries that have had offshore wind development for many years in Europe.
Carrie, I think we have time for about one more question, and I also think that Mike Winka seems to have answered the SBC charge question.
Oh, of course he did. Mike Winka.
I think he said it was in the 1999 law and started in 2001 for the Clean Energy Program when the first EE and RE programs were approved. So thank you, Mike. But Carrie, you go forward.
Great, thank you, Marjorie. Before I pose this last question to you, Christine, there were a number of questions about residential and commercial programs. So I encourage you to join us for our next two webinars. And so if your question wasn't answered here, I'm sure our presenters can help answer your questions as well. So Christine, for a last question, there was a question about renters and whether their renters can gain access to some of the programs. And if so, if you could explain how.
Yeah, and I will say this is a challenge, and since Mike Wink is on, we've talked about this together, renters and multifamily buildings and how to engage those communities in clean energy programs. We have not solved this problem. I will start by saying that it's a continued challenge. I think we've moved, we've moved in the direction of expanding access to renters. That's partly with community solar. I mean, that's really a big piece of that initiative, is ensuring that you don't have to have solar on your roof. You can be a renter. You can access a community solar project and be buying clean energy that way. Our Comfort Partner program, the low income energy efficiency program, that the renters do access that. I mean, it is a struggle because oftentimes renters are paying their utility bills, but they are not the owner of the property. So we have worked, through the Comfort Partners program, and we continue to do that to engage landlords and building owners, so that the landlords are accessing the program, but that it's actually reducing energy use and reducing the bills for the people that are renting. But it's a challenge, and we're trying and we're working on it, but it's something that we have more room to grow on.
Well, on behalf of all of us here at the Climate Change Resource Center, we really like to once again thank Christine Sadovy for her informative, wonderful presentation and for taking so many questions. Again, this will be recorded and available on our website in the next few days. We hope you'll join us for our next Climate Academy, which Carrie alluded to, which is Friday, March 19th at noon, for follow-up to today's. And we will have folks from the Clean Energy Program there who will be focusing on reducing the climate footprint of New Jersey residences. So thank you all again, and this concludes today's event.